the largest immigrant group in the U.S., hated by Benjamin Franklin. Anti-immigrant sentiment is as old as the United States. Benjamin Franklin was worried about one particular group. Indeed, he wrote about it while America was still British.
Why should Pennsylvania, founded by the English, become a colony of aliens?
Can you guess whom Franklin was referring to? It's still the largest ancestry group in the United States. They're no longer considered immigrants, of course, but there are about 43 million of them. They are white, Protestant English speakers, but they are not English. Several American presidents belong to this group: Eisenhower, Truman, Hoover, Nixon, Trump. The immigrants Franklin was so worried about were Germans. They'd shortly be so numerous as to Germanize us, he wrote, instead of our anglifying them. Franklin's rhetoric did nothing to discourage German immigration, but he died long before the largest influx occurred. Between 1845 to 1855, more than 1 million Germans fled to the U.S. They sought to escape the political unrest in Germany. The 1848 German Revolution ruined many people's livelihoods, but few places besides the U.S. allowed immigration back then. Many of the Germans who traveled overseas had money. They didn't hang around Ellis Island, waiting for handouts. Instead, they sought farmland and work in the Midwest. New York City did have one of the largest German settlements, but so did Baltimore, Cincinnati, St. Louis, and Milwaukee. Germans built guest houses and restaurants. Each usually came with its own brewery. This angered some hardline American Baptists. Moreover, many of the new arrivals were Catholic. American nativists could tolerate German Lutherans, but they saw Catholic immigration as a papal conspiracy. They argued that Catholics would always remain loyal to Rome. Nonetheless, Germans mostly had no trouble integrating. By 1910, the U.S. had 554 German-language newspapers. There were German-language school systems in the Midwest. Germans brought kindergartens to America. The word means children's garden. The American appetite for beer and hot dogs was also fueled by Germans. Germans retained their language and traditions. But then World War I broke out. German Americans were accused of being loyal to the Kaiser. Suddenly, their traditions looked suspicious. They were no longer perceived as Americans. Now the press started referring to all Germans as Huns. The Huns were medieval barbaric raiders. This stereotype quickly spread to encompass all people of German descent. States banned German language schools. German books were removed from libraries. Some German Americans were interned. There was at least one lynching. In response, German Americans began to assimilate. They changed their names to English-sounding ones. Huber became Hoover. Eisenhower became Eisenhower. Schmidt became Smith. German streets were renamed. In public, German Americans would speak English to one another. The beer gardens shut down. The German custom of beer after church on Sundays died out. World War II saw another outbreak of anti-German hysteria. At least 11,000 German Americans were interned in camps. Some were only freed in 1948, 3 years after the war was over. But as Germany grew wealthier, immigration stopped. The traditions, having died out, were never revived. Today, there's almost nothing left but some of the names. Benjamin Franklin would have been pleased